Thank you very much. So my talk concerns students' motivation and self-regulated learning. Yeah, so a little bit about my context and participants. I've been working in Hong Kong for many years, so most of my data actually comes from Hong Kong schools and students. And also I've got quite some data from Singapore. I published some papers already, but most of my papers are actually published concern Hong Kong students and teachers in the school contexts, primary schools and secondary schools. Yeah. Why young learners' motivation and self-regulated learning? Because motivation itself actually fluctuates a lot. It is also one of the most important and challenging parts of teaching and also students' learning. Yeah. And because young learners, they are at a very crucial stage in development, and also they need a variety of support to sustain their motivation. Yeah. So I think it's very significant to study research young learners' motivation. Yeah. And also self-regulated learning. If you're not conducting such research, I can explain in a very simple term. Self-regulated learning refers to students' behaviors, actions, maybe thoughts that direct their learning, actually. So it's a kind of learner behavior. And motivation influences students' learning behaviors, actually. Yeah. So I can say that self-regulated learning has been heavily influenced by students' motivation in my research. Yeah. And I've been using this theory to guide my research, expectancy value theory. Yeah. Because motivation itself actually is a latent construct, latent variable. Motivation itself does not simply mean students' interest. Yeah. Because motivation includes multiple um, uh, indicators, or we can say motivational beliefs. Yeah. But again, I need a theory to guide my studies. Yeah. And basically, this theory means that we human beings are learners. We've got different expectancies and values. Yeah. So expectancies here mean expectations for future success, things like that. For example, we got self-efficacy. I mean, how confident we are in studying itself. Yeah. Or how confident we are in speaking in English. Yeah. We also have values as well. Aspects of individuals' own value system. For example, whether we think learning English itself is hugely important or is a little bit important, or whether we think learning itself gives us some sort of pleasure or enjoyment. Yeah. So here, expectancies and values, they sort of refer broadly to motivational beliefs, which I'm talking about today. Yeah. So under the motivational beliefs, we have self-efficacy. So self-efficacy has got a definition here. It refers to your own assessment of your ability to carry out some tasks, actually. So we're talking about some tasks here. Yeah. Whether you think you are able to talk confidently or whether you're able to write in a confident manner. And also, I added growth mindset. This is something really new into the literature because I wanted to know whether, say, Chinese learners or learners in Asia really show some kind of level of growth mindset. Self-efficacy has been a Western concept here. It's about students' say confidence level, but in the Asian Chinese context, I think we want students to understand that their efforts actually can lead to better results. I mean, efforts can pay off. Yeah, if you put in time and effort, for sure you will be able to achieve better. Yeah, so this is another variable that I included in my research in order to understand better. Yeah, in the past, actually, I did lots of research about self-efficacy already, but I thought self-efficacy may not the best predictor of students' learning because self-efficacy has been the most powerful predictor or motivational variable of students' learning in the Western context. And I wanted to understand the kind of differences between um, uh, self-efficacy and growth mindset in terms of their influence in students' learning in the Chinese or Hong Kong or Singapore context. Yeah. And I interest here is one of the motivational beliefs as well. And I think here everybody might have some understanding about interest. What I wanted to say, a lot of teachers might think motivation means interest. Interest means intrinsic motivation. That's a bit narrow here, I guess. Yeah, because motivation is really a huge concept, which includes multiple uh, motivational beliefs. Yeah. And also here we got utility as well. Yeah, all these can be considered those major constructs under expectancies and value theory, actually. Yeah. So utility is a kind of belief as well, whether learners think that learning something or learning English or doing something is of value to them, whether it's useful or not. And here I also included anxiety, but anxiety actually is not part of the theory here. Yeah. But because in my empirical studies, I always included those positive predictors and the results don't really look interesting anymore because you always see those positive influences. So I added anxiety as well sometimes in order to show some interesting findings, yeah, in empirical research. Yeah. Right. So we understand that motivational beliefs initiate, direct, and sustain learning behaviors. In other words, I'm trying to say that motivation influences students' self-regulated learning a lot. Yeah. And in my past research, actually, because I've collected a lot of data, I've done multiple studies in Hong Kong, and it always shows that motivation has very strong impact on students' learning, but in different ways, of course, because we're talking about different motivational beliefs. Yeah. So what is self-regulated learning? Yeah. So this is definition. Maybe I can give you some time to have a quick read. I don't want to keep on talking. Maybe you will fall asleep. You will feel bored if I keep on talking all the time. Right. So basically, in terms of self-regulation, we want learners to be able to set goals. They should be able to use strategies to achieve their learning goals. And also later on, they will evaluate their performance. And of course, we can call this as a kind of reflection as well. Later on, I'm going to show you some practical strategies that we can teach our students to do self-reflection. Yeah. Right. So young learners, students or children's expectancies and values, they become mature, in fact. Yeah. They can become more mature when students grow. Yeah. So that's why I think it's more interesting and important to research about young learners' motivation and self-regulation. And also we have to understand that individual learners relative weighting of these various components, various beliefs, motivational beliefs can be very different. Say learner A might have a high level of self-efficacy, but low level of interest. Yeah. Another learner might be high in interest, but low in self-efficacy. So we're talking about a lot of learner differences, but how do these differences in their learner motivational beliefs influence their learning behaviors? This is a kind of general, a huge question I'm trying to answer so far. Yeah. Right. So, and later on, I became more interested or a little bit more interested into the fact or the situation where how motivation is influenced. What influences students' motivation? Yeah, we understand motivation is very important, but what really, influences motivation itself, because I've been treating motivation as a predictor of their learning behavior, self-regulated learning. But what is the source of motivation? And according to this theory, students' learning context, maybe, say social cultural contexts, yeah, this, society, importance of English in Hong Kong, in Singapore, and also the situations, for example, in the classroom, teacher-students interactions, peer support, things like that, right? All these might contribute to students' motivation or learners' motivation as well. Yeah. I'm sorry, sometimes I use the term students because my students, my participants are always primary school or secondary school students. Yeah. So this is one of the, the findings of one of my studies. I divided the students into three categories: low achievers, average achievers, and high achievers. Yeah. So here we can tell actually their interest. Yeah. The low achievers' interests predicts their learning behaviors, self-regulated learning strategies, actually. Yeah. And also their growth mindset. Okay. Remember what is growth mindset? Yeah. Whether you think, you believe that your efforts, yeah, will lead to better results or not. Yeah. And self-efficacy actually doesn't predict their self-regulated learning. This is very interesting. In the classroom, teachers may always think, oh, my students don't have the confidence. But actually, for low achievers, what's more important is their interest and also their, growth mindset. Yeah. Okay. In the same study, for average achievers, interest becomes less useful. Yeah. But self-efficacy becomes useful. Again, growth mindset is still the most powerful predictor. Remember, we saw this, yeah, for low achievers. And also for average achievers, growth mindset remains still very important. But self-efficacy actually picks up a little bit. Yeah, because self-efficacy predicts two types of strategies here, and growth mindset, three. Yeah. And for high achievers now, very interesting, interest doesn't matter anymore. Whether the teacher is boring or not, your tasks are interesting or not, engaging or not, it doesn't matter because they've got strong self-efficacy and also growth mindset. But now, I really wanted to highlight self-efficacy has been found the most powerful predictor in the Western context. Yeah. And in my studies, I have to say multiple the term studies because I've done multiple studies, yeah, about growth mindset self-efficacy. I found growth mindset is a more powerful predictor than self-efficacy. Very interesting for me, for myself. Yeah. So I'm trying to say, in terms of students' motivation, if we're talking about Asian learners, I think growth mindset might be a better predictor. Yeah. And this is another study, a more recent study. Yeah, I think we are able to see the reality here again, the finding here, growth mindsets. Yeah, if you look at these values, yeah, they are higher, which means they are better predictors in this study than self-efficacy. But again, self-efficacy actually is also important, but its importance, yeah, maybe is a bit lower than self-efficacy. And interest, intrinsic value, we can say it's interest as well, yeah, is less powerful than these two variables. Yeah. So I think one of the things we have to highlight to teachers, you do not have to simply, try to be interesting to your students. Yeah, because the other very motivational variables also have importance there, maybe more important than interest itself. Yeah. And remember, I said I became more interested in the sources of motivation. So I carried out another study or some other studies in recent years. So in this study, actually say teachers' growth mindset predicts students' strategy use as well. Yeah. And parents' growth mindset as well. Yeah. So adults' mindsets influence students' use of strategies, which in turn impact their English learning results. Yeah. And also community influence and social values. Yeah. Okay. So this is a new study, and I did another study. I wanted to understand how students' growth mindsets. Yeah. I can categorize students in terms of their growth mindsets. Yeah. So we found 4 profiles. First one, fixed profile. Yeah. So in contrast to growth mindset, we got students with fixed mindsets. Yeah. So this is a fixed profile. If you look at the color here, right? So students fixed mindset actually is very high here. Yeah. And their growth mindset is low. Yeah. And the green color here, yeah, fixed mindset is a little bit higher, and growth mindset is a little bit lower. So we term this one as mixed mindset profile. Yeah. And this one, this color, growth mindset. Yeah. Because students have a lower level of fixed mindset, but higher level of growth mindset. It could be a little bit confusing here if you look at the chart, but basically the understanding is in terms of variable center research, what I did before, right? It showed that the growth mindset was the best predictor of students' learning. But in reality, every student has a mixture of mindsets, fixed and growth. Yeah. So here we might have students in this profile, they have more fixed than growth. Yeah. And in this profile, they have more growth than fixed. And here they have like a slightly higher fixed mindset than the growth. And here is like the last one, the green one, is like a more balanced profile, mixed and fixed together, mixed. Yeah. So what do you think of the findings will be like, everybody? The growth mindset, the best, and then, yeah, so think about it. Yeah, so let me show the results here. So the findings suggest actually the mixed profile and the growth profile, right? They're the better profiles, okay? Yeah, because we used the z-score here. You see something like, below this bar, right? But it doesn't mean it's negative actually, because this is z-score. It just means it's a little bit lower than this one in terms of English results, yeah? So the growth profile, yeah, shows higher English results and also use of strategies, followed by the mixed profile. Yeah, so English results a little bit lower than those students in the growth profile. Yeah, but the strategy use actually also not bad. Yeah, if you look at these mixed and slight fixed profile and the fixed profile, right? So they score lower, much lower. Yeah, below the z-score actually here, right? Below the bar here. Yeah, yeah. So in other words, actually, I think teachers should understand that our students always have a mixture of, growth and fixed mindsets, which is okay. Yeah. And we have to understand this reality and then propose ideas or methods for our students. Okay. Yeah. So this is something I've done recently because the variable center approach has been there for years. And then journals, researchers now wanted to understand better, students in terms of their profiles, not in terms of, those variables, which may not be very clear, for us to understand our students, right? And I did another study here. I think this is very interesting. Yeah. So we collected data on students' actual proficiency. So we collected their actual English learning scores or results, and then we also asked students to report what they think of the results. I mean, their perceived English learning results or scores, yeah, in a given at the end of the term. And the results show actually their perceived proficiency is a better predictor of students' motivation here. Yeah, yeah. And their self-perceived proficiency predicts anxiety negatively, right? Which means if they think their results can be good, right? It predicts their anxiety in a negative way, which is understandable. Yeah. And their actual proficiency actually doesn't predict their motivation very well. Yeah. So the implication is students always have their imagined English learning proficiency. Yeah. But where they think they are, and also their actual proficiency. Yeah. And the teacher's role is really to narrow the gap between the two. Yeah, their actual English results and their imagined or perceived English results. Yeah. But anyway, I am going to talk about those really practical strategies very soon. Yeah. So I hope teachers can really go and study some theories because I think our research and also teaching should be theory driven rather than just practice. Yeah. So expectancy value theory because it includes multiple motivational beliefs. Yeah. Everybody has got multiple, beliefs, and all these beliefs actually can be high, low, high, low, high, low for different students. Yeah, so the combination is different. Yeah, and the results can be very different from student to student. Yeah, and interest should be considered a universal influencer for all students because my results have really shown that interest may not be the most important for high achievers in my studies. And also growth mindset. If you are a researcher based in Asia, when you think of your students, research about your students, maybe growth mindset, you want to do a little bit research about it because self-efficacy is soft, right? I mean, if you simply include self-efficacy interest, you will have some results as well, some interesting results. But it might show that self-efficacy really is always the more important predictor of students' learning. But for Asian students, the culture is very different. Yeah, we want to connect students' learning with the culture as well, their motivation with the local culture as well. So in my studies, I included growth mindset. Yeah. Now, um, self-regulated learning includes goal setting. Remember, I showed that already. Yeah. Planning, monitoring, and reflection. I'm going to share some practical strategies, but very importantly, we have to understand that students' self-regulated learning develops through the years. Yeah. And what my research has been, you know, cross-sectional. I mean, I conducted research with data collected from, one group of students in 1 year or one time. Yeah, it doesn't show the longitudinal effects, yeah, or influence there. So I really think we want to collect more data, longitudinal data, which I'm trying to do somewhere, yeah. And also in terms of teaching, we can't simply teach students self-regulation, say in primary 5 or primary 6, because all human beings, including children, they develop their self-regulated learning from young. So maybe teachers, say in grade 1, can do something. Simply let your students set some simple goals, and then gradually more things, more strategies will be introduced to your students. Yeah, and also variable center research may be outdated, may be considered outdated by some journals if you're a researcher in the audience. Yeah. Yeah, because say British Journal for Educational Psychology, they have said they're not going to accept studies with SEM. Yeah, they wanted to say some other analytical approaches, for example, person-centered research. Yeah, which I have done a little bit so far. So we can categorize students into different profiles. Yeah, right. So, how do we actually enhance students' motivation? For example, self-efficacy. Yeah. And here I got some methods, but I don't think we got enough time to really discuss all these methods. Yeah. But my first method is about promoting student self-efficacy. Right. So, say self-talk is really one of the ways to help students to develop self-efficacy. So we can ask students whether, I mean, how, why they love reading. Yeah, I mean, in terms of reading, right? Say, I love reading because, I can do reading, because let them give you reasons, let them really discuss. And you want to really appreciate their discussion there. Yeah. Some students may say, oh, I hate reading. You still can tell them why. Ask them, why do you hate reading? I think all students might like reading to a certain extent, but it's always useful for students really to understand their level, yeah, themselves. Yeah, I hate, I like, I can do this and that. Why? Yeah. So self-talk or self-talks really can help students a little bit better. Right. And another way to help students is to set learning goals. Yeah. So, and purposes. Now, there's a difference between learning goals and purposes here. I can show quickly. So the goals actually refer to the long-term objectives students may have. Yeah, the long-term ones. Okay. And right. And purposes can refer to the things your students want to achieve for a given reading passage. Say, oh, about this reading, I want to look out for how characters get along. Yeah. I want to focus on how characters talk. Yeah. So there's a difference there. But in the classroom context, it's always not possible for the teacher to teach the differences to their students. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. So how do we help students to sort of set goals or purposes? Yeah, so we can have this reading goal log. Yeah, really let students write down the things or goals they have in terms of reading. Yeah, say, uh, I wanted to learn more words. Yeah, I wanted to develop my reading skills. Yeah, over the term, for example, or over the week, and then let them tell you how. Yeah. But teachers, because we know that students are very different. Yeah. So this is not another worksheet your students must complete and everybody must give you 10 goals. This is wrong or this is bad. I think what we can do is to really encourage students to set their own personal goals. Yeah. And then if they're able to achieve their goals at the end of the term, you want to celebrate. Yeah, say, okay, you're a weak learner, you set 5 goals. Yeah, and you achieve the 5 goals at the end of the term. I'm really happy for you. I'll give you a gift. Yeah, because you have achieved excellence in setting goals and also achieving your goals. Another higher learner, high ability learner who sets 10 goals and achieves the 10 goals, you also want to celebrate their success, right? And also give them excellence because they achieve a set and achieve the goals suitable for their level. Yeah. So this is how we want to really cater for learner differences. Sometimes I think teachers think, oh, catering for learner differences means I'll let my students learn fewer words, give them fewer tasks to do. But I think that's what you set for them. Why don't we help students, help them to set their own goals? Yeah, take their own actions to achieve their goals as well. Right. So, yeah. So here I got an example from teachers. Yeah, sometimes teachers don't understand what I'm talking about. It's hard for teachers really to understand research. And then, but what they do is they provide a list of the so-called purposes, yeah, okay, to their students, yeah, and let their students really choose the purposes they can achieve, yeah, within a week or after reading some passages or some texts, yeah. And also there may be some blanks here, yeah, for those very capable students to write out their own purposes, yeah. And the teachers here should not really judge students. You can't do well, you can do well, because this is what your students can do, they think they can do. So autonomy is a key word, right? We want students to have some sort of agency there in order to take charge of their own learning. Yeah. So I hope I've been clear here. Yeah. But I think we have to understand that reading, yeah, I mean, teachers, what do we want students to do? We don't simply want students to learn to read. We want them to read to learn. Yeah. I mean, we want to empower students in the reading process. Yeah. They want to learn a little bit more beyond the text, beyond reading comprehension. Yeah. How? So one of the powerful strategies actually is really get your students to ask questions. Yeah. Donna shares very useful tips, for picture book reading. I believe a lot of questions will be asked by the teacher, but at the same time, I think it's always or more important, I think, for teachers to think whether and how they will enable their students to ask their own questions. Yeah, we don't have stupid questions, simple questions, bad questions, because in the classroom, the teacher can always ask too many questions, maybe. Yeah, to the extent that our students feel, oh my God, my teacher is the authority. I should just listen. It's boring. I don't understand, but it's okay because I'm a learner. I have to receive the questions, but they can't understand or even answer the questions. So now my point is teachers might really want their students to ask their own questions. Yeah. So anyway, I'm going to stop sharing here because I'm going to share a video quickly. So to give you an idea, what can teachers do? What do I mean by enabling students to ask questions?
At the beginning, before we start reading it, we're going to look at that same story as we read or during our reading, and then we're going to look at the book at the end. And we're going to ask I wonder questions all the way through. You have a clipboard and 3 different sticky notes. So before we start reading, we're going to use our blue sticky note. During our story, we're going to use our green sticky note. And after we're finished reading our story, we're going to use the large yellow sticky note. While you look at the cover of the book, you're going to immediately have questions in your head that you wonder about. Use your blue sticky note to write down whatever you're wondering. Take a look at the pictures, but also take a look at the title or any words that you see. Turn to the person beside you and share your question.
I wonder why you made this
Now that we have
Right. So, students might have a lot of questions and also some questions may be irrelevant. That's okay. Yeah. Because I think you want to hear the voice as well as a learner. And also you will be able to understand your students' reading level there, right? Oh, this student asked some irrelevant questions. Oh, maybe she's weak, right? You understand that. And also through reading and listening to other students' questions, some students may know, okay, my peers ask such interesting questions. I've never thought about it. Yeah. Okay, so this will empower the other students to think a little bit more deeper, yeah, a little bit more critically. And then I think it's always a good idea for the teacher to share students' questions, yeah, with the whole class. But because now we got Palette, we got AI, we got everything, right? I think the questions can be posted to the computer, so all students can quickly see their peers' questions on the board in front.
Questions up on our chart. Let's hear some of them. I wonder if he is nice or evil. So as we're reading your
Right.
your
Right. So during reading, students can also think of their questions, and later on, the teacher will just show the questions on the boards. And of course, some of the pre-reading questions get answered, some of the questions don't get answered, which is okay. Yeah. So throughout the three reading stages, questions are asked. Yeah. And students feel they are taking charge, really, and the teacher respects their questions. Their classmates also respects their questions as well. Yeah. So, right. So I just stop sharing the video. I'm coming back to my slides quickly, I hope. Right. Yeah.
We're good
So
for time,
here,
Dr. Bai. Sorry, we still have like 6 minutes. We're good for time.
right. Yeah, I'm not finished. I've got still many slides left.
Excellent.
Yeah, right. So I understand teachers will say, oh, my students can't ask questions. They don't ask questions. Yeah, change the culture. Yeah, say from primary one, you will simply tell students, ask questions, feel free. Yeah, I'll be very happy to listen to your questions. Students might ask very simple and silly questions. You will say, good, because you can ask questions. Yeah, and why not talk to Chinese teachers. In Chinese lessons or some other tongue lessons, students don't ask questions either because teachers really suppress their students' voice. Let them ask questions. In math questions, in math lessons as well, right? So teachers might want to talk to their colleagues in the other subjects, yeah, to exchange ideas in order for students to really feel they are empowered, they can ask their own questions, yeah. I'm going to talk about, the types of questions you want students to ask, but basically we all understand closed questions, open-ended questions, and also higher order thinking questions, like Donna said, right? According to Bloom's taxonomy, those questions can be asked as well. So I think we have to take a view. I mean, the curriculum issue, right? I mean, it's not simply a question about what teachers should do in the classroom. I think the whole school approach can be applied here. Yeah. And say, before reading, let students reflect, think, what questions can you ask, right? While reading and after reading. Yeah. Right. Now I'm showing a very simple graph or charts about the so-called reading strategies teachers may use with their students. Say, okay, before students start reading, I'm going to let them ask their own questions. Although I might have my own questions, still I want to understand my students' current level and their curiosity as well. Yeah, of course, you can let students predict. Yeah, you can also ask students to make connections between the text. For example, just now we saw a video. It's about superpotamus. It's like, superpotamus, that sort of animal. And let students tell you what kind of animals have they seen in the zoo or in the wild, right? Why? And what do they think of those animals in terms of, certain things? Making connections as well. And even after reading, students still can make connections with the text, right? Right. So here, right, so I have to stop again here. I'm going to show you a text very quickly again in order for me to share the strategies I wanted to share. Yeah. So, oh, sorry, this is the wrong one. Sorry, this is the wrong one. Yeah. Just bear with me. I'm sorry. Right. So this is the right one. Yeah. So this is a text from Hong Kong textbooks, Primary 5. So it's not short, I can say, for Primary 5 school students in Hong Kong. So what can teachers do? I mean, in terms of using strategies and teaching strategies, yeah, I would encourage teachers to just go and show the text and read and, understand, which is, just reading comprehension, yeah. So remember I said we want to go beyond reading comprehension. So what can we do? I'm going to share quickly because I don't have a lot of time left. Right. So say before reading, I might, show the pictures. Yeah. I mean, from the text and also the title, and let students do some activities. For example, who are they? Yeah. And all students can ask questions as well, right? Say, oh, why are there two different colors? Yeah. Two different teams. Yeah. What kind of, event is this? What do you see? Where is it? Yeah. And do they have names? Say students can ask a lot of questions here. Yeah. I'm talking about asking questions only. I mean, as a strategy here. But in fact, there can be other things or other strategies. For example, we ask students to set reading purposes. Yeah, different students might have different purposes, which you want to acknowledge. You want to give positive feedback. Yeah. And you also wanted your students to connect themselves with reading. Yeah. By saying this, I'm trying to say we don't simply say, oh, today we are doing reading, and then students will just think of, connections. I think maybe 1 or 2 weeks even before the task itself, you can let students go and search for some, texts or videos about race, for example, races, right? Why do people lose in a race? Yeah, I mean teamwork. Why do people, win in teamwork? Yeah. So when students come back to the classroom, they are better prepared. Yeah. Right. So many things can be done, or many strategies can be used before reading here. Yeah. And also say, remember, we saw different places during reading. What can I ask my students to do? Right? I can ask them to read the text. And also, maybe I want my students to draw the route. Yeah. The blue team, the yellow team. Yeah. And analyze their routes. Yeah. I think, the winning team, they got the route correct. Yeah, the losing team actually got confused about the route. Yeah, and also maybe I want my students to have a dialogue with those with the writer or with those characters. The blue team or the yellow team. Yeah. Oh, what are you thinking of? What do you feel? How do you feel here? Yeah. So they can have a kind of discussion or dialogue with the characters in the story. Yeah, of course, we can do lots of other things as well in terms of strategies. Yeah, but I'm saying we want to go beyond because we can't simply be bound by what we read. We want students to imagine as well in the reading process. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And finally, I'm going to stop right soon. Yeah, 5 minutes. Yeah, right. So
What did you want to
finally, say after reading, what can I do again? I can ask students to ask new questions. Yeah, or I can ask my students to summarize what they have read in their own way, or even maybe I can ask my students to change the ending of it and think of why they want to change the ending. Yeah, and also they can evaluate whether they have done the reading well, whether they have achieved their reading goal or reading purposes or not. Why not? Yeah. So a lot of strategies or things I think the teacher can do with the students. Yeah. My point here has been we shouldn't just simply do reading comprehension in a EFL or ESL context. Yeah. We want students to go beyond reading comprehension. Read to learn, remember? Yeah. Right. And lastly, the last strategy I wanted to share, this is really powerful. Say say this is like the last step of the cycle of self-regulated learning. Yeah. So we can ask students reflect 3-1 teachers. Yeah. You can simply write down 3-1. Three things you learned today, two things you did well today, and one thing you don't think you have learned well, but you want to learn a little bit more about, right? So the audience here as well, everybody, maybe you can reflect a little bit. I've been talking for about 40 minutes, 45 minutes. What are the three things you think you learned so far? Yeah. And two things you have done really well. And one thing you want to do a little bit better later. Remember, it has to be 3-1. It can't be 10, 5, 3. Why? Because 10, you overload your students, you know. And if it's 5, 8, 1, you are giving your students a chance for failure, right? Because your students will say, oh, I didn't do well. I mean, sorry, no. What I'm saying is, say, 3 becomes 5, and then 10 goals, right? And students will feel, oh, I've got still 10 goals, I can't achieve too many, right? So it's always like 3-1 or 6, 3-2, that sort of things, because we want students to always feel they have learned more than they have lost. Yeah, they have achieved better more than they have got failures. Yeah, so 3-1 is better. Say because 3-1 can be done after lesson. Yeah, simply because you got 45 minutes lesson or 30 minutes lesson, right? You don't want to have like 10, 5, 2. Yeah, too many for students to do. Yeah. So I've been trying to do research because I train teachers in Hong Kong. I'm a teacher educator, but I don't feel like our teaching is always based on our experience sharing. It may not be that the best idea, and I think research really informs teaching. So I got lots of inspirations from students and teachers because I keep conducting school-based projects. I receive many projects to train teachers. And I feel very proud because I think I can know students a little bit better. I mean, through observations, you know students well, but I think through research, you really know what's happening behind, and you will be able to help teachers and students a bit better. Yeah, thank you very much. And finally, I'm really grateful because ELLRA has offered this chance for me to talk to all of you. I'm able to connect with teachers, researchers, professors in our association. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bai, for that very insightful presentation. I think we learned many more than 3 things from your talk, absolutely. Your findings were truly enlightening, and you've really combined a lot of research findings with pedagogical implications. So now I'm going to warmly welcome all participants to please posit your questions by raising your hand in the participants panel or sharing your questions on the chat. Well, if no one asks, I'm going to break the ice here. I've got many. Oh, sorry. We have Beth Ann. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you, Raul. I hope you can hear me okay. Thank you very much, Barry. It was super interesting. And I do have a question because you really emphasized this, that the difference, that you saw these differences of self-efficacy in the Asian context, or particular the
Yeah.
Hong Kong context. And I was wondering, why do you think that is such a difference?
Yeah, because I think I'm not really very familiar with the Western context, but I think I'm familiar with Asian, Hong Kong, Singapore, Chinese context, because I think parents always wanted their children to do really well in English learning. And at the same time, I think the culture itself emphasizes the importance of hard work. Yeah, sometimes rote learning may be one of those things that we do. Yeah. And parents will say, just do it, do a lot, practice a lot. Yeah. And in the Western context, that might be perceived as a kind of silly efforts, right? But I think Chinese learners, Asian learners put in lots of time and effort to do it. Yeah. They may not have the so-called smart ways. Yeah. But they spend lots of time, lots of efforts into achieving a little bit better. Yeah. And also I think there's I'm not sure if you know a person called I can't remember, Indian person. He was based in Hong Kong for many years. And I think that they try to understand whether rote learning would really work for Hong Kong students. Actually, the finding was rote learning may not be that silly. Yeah, rote learning can really help students well. Yeah, so so this is what I'm trying to say. Culturally speaking, cultures in the Confucian heritage, countries those students may use like silly ideas, maybe silly ways by memorizing, lots of time spent reading the text itself, efforts and things like that, right? Yeah, which is okay, maybe. Yeah. But I think what teachers can do is really when students have achieved a little bit better, the teacher wants the students to see the link between their efforts and the results. Oh, you see, yesterday you paid good attention, and today you can answer my questions well. I think you are doing good, right? I'm so happy for you. Yeah. Oh, you see, the other day you spent 2 hours studying, and this week your result is better. Well done. Of course, sometimes students really are silly, right? They spend lots of time doing nothing useful. Yeah. And the teachers want students to be a little bit smarter than that. Yeah. But I think efforts, time are some variables we want students to understand can be, useful for their learning back then. Thank you. Yeah. But I think in the Western context, you don't want students to do that, right? Yeah. Role learning, things like that. Yeah.
Thank you. I think we have a question from Sandy as well. Maybe you can unmute your phone, your microphone.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Barry. I very much appreciated and it was quite dense, theoretical sort of support. And then the way that you have transformed that into recommendations for your teacher education programs. And it was lovely to see that connection. But I have a question about the dense bit.
Yeah.
So I have a question about the slide that looked at the SEM model depicting the relations among the variables. And
Right. Just let me show the slides again.
Okay.
Yeah. So
It's not going to be a technical
happy
question
to
because
answer your questions. Yeah.
I'm
Let me
not
go. Yeah.
I'm not a technical person, but
Right.
I was very interested in the fact that you had social values, community influence,
Right.
growth
Okay.
mindsets, and parent growth mindsets. So,
Right.
yeah, and I wondered how you collected the data
Right. So I wanted to
community.
understand, right. I wanted to understand the influence of the social cultural influence on students' strategy use here. Yeah. According to social cultural theory there. Yeah.
Okay.
So social values, community influence, teachers' growth mindsets, parents' growth mindset here. Yeah. How did I collect the data? We collected data through questionnaires. Yeah. This is a problem, I know. Yeah. So, oh, your students' beliefs. Yeah, sure. Because motivation, it's a kind of belief. Yeah. And people always say, oh, young children, they're not able to tell you about their beliefs. Yeah. But because I've collected lots of data, I'm not trying to defend myself, with this method, but I'm trying to tell you, if you have a better method, let me know. And this is the way that, not you, Sandy. Yeah,
Right.
because I think reviewers always raise this question. Yeah,
Right.
questionnaires, reliable or not? Yeah, I can say,
So
eh,
sorry, but Barry, to interrupt. So I'm not questioning questionnaires, but your questionnaire would have had a certain number of questions which
yeah,
fell into the community influence aspect.
right, yeah,
Yeah. Can you give me just some examples of the questions that you might have used that indicated that there was a community influence?
right.
You can
So,
recall some.
right, say, say learning English is very important in Hong Kong, right?
Okay.
And
Okay.
then say my parents or my classmates always think their English will give them a better future.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And say English is always spoken by important people, for example.
Okay.
Yeah. English is
Yeah.
always used, say, in business, for example. English is useful for my
Okay.
university entry.
Okay,
Yeah.
lovely. That's fine. Those are great examples. Thank you.
Yeah.
And what age were your students in that
Oh,
particular?
my students, I can explain. They are like P4, P5, and P6. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Always.
Maybe sort of
Why?
9 to 12. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, 11, 12, or 10 years old.
Okay.
Why? Because I really don't think that key stage one children, primary one, primary two, and primary three, they're able to understand the questions. Yeah, they may not be mature enough. And primary four and primary five, primary six students are mature enough. And also, when the trained teachers, all these data actually is really connected with projects I do. I can show you quickly
No,
what.
no, it's okay. That's fine. That
Yeah,
answered my question. I have just one more because I know that
mm,
Carolyn also has a question.
yeah.
So the model that you showed, figure 3, positive and negative academic indicators across the 4 profiles. So it's with the
All
blocks
right. Okay. Here,
and the
right?
table.
This one.
That's the one.
Yeah. This
Yeah,
one.
yeah. So I wondered, so it's about academic,
Sorry,
yeah.
I can't see well here either.
I
EA, right?
wondered, positive
English
and
learning
academic
results.
indicators. So
Right.
what were these indicators? Were they exam results? Were they oral,
Yeah. We
oral?
we
Were they
gave
literacy?
students a reading test.
Right, so it's
Yeah.
reading.
Yeah,
Okay.
English language achievement here, which is reading. It includes grammar, vocabulary, and reading comprehension. Yeah, it doesn't include writing. Why? Because it was a proficiency test that we designed and administered in the schools. It would be super hard to mark students' writing because students will not write for you. They would just write like 20 words when you ask them to write 120, and that result may not be reliable. And also, it's very time consuming. Yeah, so we used a kind of reading test as proficiency tests. Yeah.
Okay. I
Mm,
mean, so the feel that I'm getting from the
mm,
two presentations today
mm,
is the focus on the literacy aspect of language learning
mm.
seems to be much more developed or much more a greater emphasis than we would
Mm.
possibly place on foreign language learning in a European context,
Yeah.
or maybe a context where exposure to the language is much smaller, because of course it's more of a second language, isn't it, with you in Hong Kong?
It can be considered a foreign language as well now. Yeah,
Okay.
given the change in students'
Well, sure.
profiles. Yeah,
Oh, right,
because
because of the multilingualism aspect.
yeah, and also uh, English, the role of English in Hong Kong has declined. I mean, for students, not just for the government or policy level, but in reality, I mean, students do not really view English as important as before nowadays. Yeah,
Because it's Chinese.
yeah.
Yeah. I just have one other question. Do you think the results would be different if you had, I know this would have been very difficult to do, but if you'd collected data on students speaking?
Yeah. Because in the classroom, reading and writing are
Mhm.
much emphasized.
Right.
Speaking, students, you can say they are silent all the time. Yeah,
Yeah.
so students are very good at reading and grammar, a little bit writing, but speaking itself can be a huge challenge for students. Yeah,
Yeah, but I mean, that's because the focus is on reading and writing, isn't it? So again,
yeah,
earlier you said you can change that.
yeah. I can
My
change
students
that.
don't
Yeah,
speak, but
yeah,
you tell
sure.
your
Yeah,
teachers
yeah.
you can change that. So possibly
Right, because
to
my own interest lies in writing before, and now I'm doing reading, and also I'm trying to connect reading and writing. I mean, a kind of research, reading to
okay.
write. Yeah,
Thank you
reading,
very
speaking is not my focus, but I think it can be very different because students' perception about reading, I mean, reading is very difficult. They're not familiar with, speaking. They're not familiar. They don't dare to talk in English even. And then motivation, self-regulation will be very different for students. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Barry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to, we have a question from Carolyn and then another one on the chat from Maria. Perhaps we can start with Carolyn's.
Okay, thank you very much, Barry, for your talk on a very interesting and a very complex topic. Forgive me if I missed it. I saw on one of your slides or a couple of your slides mention of gender. And
Yeah,
I would like to know something more about that. Do you have any data on how gender?
right. I do have some data, yeah, on gender, but I believe it's not here. Is it here? Which slide did you say? Gender. Yeah, right. We got gender. Here, there's no gender difference in these studies. Yeah, we always, I mean, included gender as a covariate. Yeah, we were wondering whether gender would have some impact on students' learning or not. The results showed no in the past studies, but in my most recent studies, because I'm trying to do research about collaborative learning. Yeah, if you are a girl, you will belong, you most likely you belong to, the group where you think teachers' help is useful. Yeah. Yeah. But if you're a boy, most likely you don't believe teachers' help is very useful. You will believe that peers' help is useful. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think I'm done with motivation, self-regulation. So I'm trying to venture into some other topics, say collaborative learning. Yeah. So gender has been something really intriguing, I know. Yeah. In some studies, gender has differences, show differences. In some studies, other studies, no. Yeah. In my studies also. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
We have another question from Maria in the chat, which says, you mentioned both agency and autonomy as sources of motivation, and it got me thinking about the balance between both of them. In
Yeah.
your view, should we aim for full autonomy, or is it more about offering agency within a clear framework? How do
Right.
we
Right.
avoid that?
Sure. Sure. Yeah. So I think, say, self-regulation or self-regulated learning, the final stage is students' autonomy. Yeah. We want students to become very independent. The teacher becomes a facilitator, but this takes years. Yeah. Say, so maybe very initially we want, I mean, teachers use a little bit agency, give students a little bit for them to understand how they can become more independent. Yeah. Yeah. But I think in many contexts, say in Hong Kong, because autonomy, if we term it as self-regulated learning, I mean, that's the final stage. And then if students lack motivation in general, they won't have better autonomy. Yeah. So many students actually, you can tell when they go to secondary school, the teachers will say, oh, all these students, they depend on the teacher. They are not independent. After studying English for 6 years, many students actually hate English in secondary school. Why? Because the teacher's way of teaching has been very teacher-centered. So students felt bored, really, throughout the 6 years of learning English. Yeah. So we are not, I mean, there's little autonomy to talk about. Yeah. Because I don't think teachers, use the, agency. Yeah. Students don't have these sort of things. Yeah. In their learning process. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
I hope I've answered your questions. Yeah.
Yeah, she's saying great. Thank you
Okay.
so
Thank you.
much. Yeah. I have a question myself,
Yeah.
Dr. Bai. Yeah, we currently studied some years ago here in my context is English as a foreign language. Spanish, Basque are co-official, but
Yeah.
Basque is a minority language. And we found out that the more motivated students were towards English, the less motivated they were towards Basque. I was
Yeah.
wondering
Sure.
whether the same thing happens or vice versa in Hong Kong with respect to English and Chinese.
Right. So, sorry. Thank you for the question. I have to apologize a little bit because I don't remember my results already. But recently, I've conducted such research. I compared students' motivation in Chinese learning and the motivation in English learning. Yeah. And there are two models actually. One model means whether you think learning one language, you got self-efficacy or motivation, and at the same time, you got the same amount of self-efficacy or motivation for learning English. And the other model is the contrast, actually. When you have a higher level of motivation in learning your mother tongue, you might have a lower level of motivation for learning the foreign language. There are such two linguistic models so far. I use the two models to analyze the data. There are some interesting findings, actually. In some levels, actually, they may not enhance each other. But in some other variables levels, they might promote each other. But sorry, I don't remember the results anymore. Yeah, I
Looking
didn't
forward to
go
knowing
back to read. If you're interested, actually, you can go on my website. You can find the study because I'm bored with what I've been doing. I'm trying to do other things. Yeah, say I wanted to compare because students are always bilingual. Yeah, whether their motivation for learning Cantonese, the mother tongue, would be a positive predictor of their motivation in learning English in Hong Kong and also in China nowadays because it's easier to collect data in China for me. Yeah, that's why. Yeah, I published like 2 papers so far. Yeah, go and check a bit. Yeah,
Thank you.
my apologies because I don't think I'm able to answer your questions very well. I can't remember the details.
Yes, we will.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We have a question from Joanna Rokita-Jasko from Poland.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, it was a very fascinating talk as well. I just wanted to ask you about one of the factors you mentioned, that is the teacher growth mindset.
Yeah.
I could ask you, well, how you defined it and operationalized it, and if you could say something more about the relationship, the child's mindset, growth mindset.
Right. So because we always provide feedback and also we always ask questions to our students. Yeah. So when students have answered a question, your response can be sit down because the student has not answered your question correctly. Yeah, sit down, or you don't have any response to your student, just let them sit down. What we can do actually is to show the growth mindset. How? You can say, wow, you tried, you see? You were so quiet before. Yeah, you tried. And I think as long as you try, you will achieve better. Let's see how. So this is a kind of teacher's growth mindset. I mean, the teacher believes if the students try, they will learn better in the future. I mean, when we give students feedback, we always wanted to give them the positive and the growth mindset oriented feedback. Yeah, when your students make a little bit of progress, you always say, okay, because you tried, because you spent time, because you discussed, because I saw you working. Yeah, so such messages actually give students the kind of impression if they try, they can do better.
Okay,
Makes
thank you
sense?
very much.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we have a question from Anna.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was very interesting and you seem so motivated. The second part of the presentation was about teachers and maybe giving them some tips about questions, but they educated about Bloom's taxonomy.
Yeah.
So maybe simply mentioning this education should result in, them asking students so-called lower order thinking questions and so on. And I think that would, make the work, right? Without giving extra tips, so that they stick to the Bloom's taxonomy of questions while practicing reading.
Yeah.
So they are educated, right? About this Bloom's taxonomy. And my second question is about Yakudoku. So I have heard about this Japanese method, very popular and very old, of teaching English. And is this popular, used by English teachers also in
No, not in Hong Kong, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, say Bloom's taxonomy includes 6 levels. Yeah, so what I suggest teachers do is not to go through all the levels, because in one lesson or in the entire school year, it's impossible to do all the levels. I think the teachers must really be aware of the fact, say in one lesson, oh, what are my questions? What questions are higher level questions? What questions are lower order thinking questions? Yeah, teachers must know there must be higher order questions, but it can't be always higher order thinking questions. Yeah. And in terms of students asking questions, I think because my research and also my passion lies in primary education, and I think the WH words questions are always useful. If you combine these words, I mean, these questions in different ways, some of the questions can really go on higher level. I mean, they can become really higher level questions as well. Yeah, because I think students, given their limited learning experience and also ability, they can't really ask very high level questions, but it's okay. Yeah, and I think we can guide students to ask their own questions with WH words always. Yeah, and through some sort of combinations, I think critical thinking can develop as well. Yeah. Yeah, because I think there are some, other higher level frames, questioning frames like WH word, sorry, how, why, and things like that. I mean, the combinations, if the questions can include how, why, and I can't remember that one anymore. Yeah, and those can bring out some sort of critical thinking in students as well. So we can encourage students to ask those sort of questions. Yeah.
Well, thank you again, Dr. Bai. I think it's 45 past, so we should be done. And I would really now like to invite everyone to mute their mics and join me in giving Dr. Bai a proper round of applause, please.
Thank you.